with the interview. Steve?
Hey, Scott, thanks for the half hour of your show. Really appreciate it.
You bet.
I am here with an all-star, I'm calling it all-star trifecta. We have Senator Alan Simpson, we have Erskine Bowles, and Lloyd Blankfein of Goldman Sachs. We're going to talk deficit. We're going to go inside Washington and inside Wall Street for just about as long as they're willing to stay. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Erskine, I want to start with you. You made a comment before we came on that said they didn't talk about the fiscal cliff or Social Security in the presidential debate. What does that tell you about the state of discussion about the issue of the deficit and the entitlement problems in this country?
People are never going to understand how critical this particular time in history is. We have $7.7 trillion worth of economic events that are going to hit America in the gut in December. And in Washington, they're doing nothing about it. Nothing about it. We should be asking these guys running for president and every guy running for Congress, what are you going to do? What kind of steps you're going to take? You know, if we do nothing, next year, you'll have the rate of growth slow to somewhere but like 3 to 5%. You'll have unemployment go up another 2% to around above 9%, and 2 million more people will lose their jobs. And we're doing nothing about it. I can't imagine it happening to Goldman Sachs.
When you look at the horizon, what's coming, view of the economy, how serious is the fiscal cliff, and how seriously do you hear Washington taking the issue?
Well, I think it's very serious. I think the candidates know how serious it is. I think they're trying to avoid it. It may be in part because it is so consequential and serious, and maybe that the ideas that would have to be put forward will be unattractive to some people. Obviously, we're in a position where new discipline is going to have to be imposed. People are going to be disappointed in the consequence, and so I think they're going to avoid it. It takes a lot of courage to take on these issues, and I think it's up to the media to really enforce this onto the candidates at this point.
So you just threw it back at me, basically.
Well, I think it's, frankly, you could also say, for the people who are the most aware of the consequences, namely people like ourselves, who are advisors to companies who have to live in the economy, we sure know what the consequence will be, and it will be awful.
Senator, if you were in a position now to be advising both candidates, what would you have them say now about the deficit, particularly in light there's a vice presidential debate this evening? What would you like to hear from them?
Well, I think you'd want to tell them what $1 trillion is. I know that's a silly exercise. Just say, well, let me tell you something about us, this country. If you spend $1 a second, you wouldn't hit $1 trillion for 32,500 years. And if you spend $1 million a day since the birth of Christ, you wouldn't be at $1 trillion. And the Big Bang Theory of the universe happened 13,600,000,000 years ago. That ain't even close to $1 trillion. We owe 16 of those babies. So start thinking, and then you're going to borrow $3,600,000,000 a day, every day. You're going to do that today, tomorrow. Every buck you spend, you borrow 41 cents. And I would say, well, one of you let a peep out of yourself of what you're going to do about that and to restore the solvency of Social Security without letting the AARP tear your leg off or Grover Norquist on the other side rip the other leg.
I want to stick with you, Senator. Is your criticism equal for both parties? Is one of them worse?
No, you bet. They're both in this. They worship the god of re-election. They're figuring all that and how to duck every hot issue before November 6th, and then Erskine says the whirlpool of $7 trillion going to hit us like a rainstorm.
You know what I'd say here, the fiscal cliff is obviously an important issue, and if we don't get through this moment, you know, there's going to be just a lot, it'd be horrible, and what else I'm going to say may not even matter in the long run. But assuming we get through the fiscal cliff, we have to get our budget on a sustainable path where it's predictable. In other words, we may get through the fiscal cliff by deferring it, or by having something where in the long run it's not sustainable because our budget deficit will keep growing wider and wider, in which case the people who have to make decisions won't regard it as a real long-term solution. What we really need to do is fix the economy of the United States on a sustainable basis so there's some predictability, so people don't stand on the sidelines, and so they go and invest, and so jobs get created, and other people come.
Let me stop you right there.
Yeah, sure.
Are you hearing from clients when you look at what's happening right now in the economy, in the book of business that you guys see every day? Are people standing on the sidelines? Is it something that's affecting the economy right now?
Oh, absolutely. The fiscal cliff specifically is one of the major ways in which the slow recovery that we have could be completely derailed. You know, hard landing in China, euro collapsing, problems in the Middle East, and fiscal cliff is probably paramount in that area.
We just met with a dozen